Hey, it's Jacob Berry, and today's throwback episode features a very good friend of mine, Michael Masouras. Before he built MotoHunt, Michael worked at Google and Yahoo, and in this episode, he shares what that experience taught him about how powersports dealers can improve their visibility online for free. We get into how search engines really see your dealership website, what Google looks for when it ranks a local business, and a few easy tools you can run today to find out how your site is performing. If you've ever felt lost when it comes to SEO, Google rankings, or how to stand out online against the big marketplaces, then this episode is for you. So let's get into it.
Today, I've got a friend on calling in from, I think, San Francisco area. Michael
That's
Masouras.
right.
Michael Masouras calling from the San Francisco area, the Bay. Michael and I will chat with you. I would tell you guys, dealership folk, get your notepads out. I know you can save the podcast and refer back to it, but Michael has a whole lot of experience. And if you can imagine working in the world of tech, things like Google and the like, anything that will help you definitely be visible online. Those are things we're going to talk about today. Michael, thanks for jumping on the podcast with me.
Thank you very much for having me, Brian. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. So if you would, if you don't mind, share a little bit about yourself, kind of where you come from. You're in sort of the motorcycle world now. I know you're a rider. Share some of that story with us so we can get some perspective before we delve into the sort of the action items and that.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. Yeah. So originally, as you said, I live in the Bay Area now in San Francisco for the last 15 years or even more. Originally, I'm from Greece, so I'm a kind of a transplant here. I kind of studied in Europe, mostly computer science stuff, and then I landed where all people who study computer science land. It's Silicon Valley. So the past 20 years, I've been working in the tech industry. That's my background. Worked in many small and large companies here in the Bay, and as recently as 4 years ago. So I've had a lot of experience, riding this tech wave in the last 20 years, and learned a lot of things, built a lot of things online and on the internet always. And then about around 4 years ago, or 5 years ago, I would say, I was working at Google. That was my last employment of record, and it was a great place to work. I mean, my colleagues were fantastically smart, and I was working on products that would be seen by billions of people. And my responsibility back then was to be an engineering manager on search, on Google search. So our team was responsible for crafting this Google Knowledge Graph, if you wish, which is like Google's database of everything. And so, when you want to Google and you ask a question, you say like horror movies or where does LeBron James play? You get this little panel with information. Or if you say, Harley Sportsters, for example, you get this little panel again with specs and stuff. So all of that was kind of our team. But then after a while, I was kind of thinking, I learned all these great things and tech, but I really love to do something about something I'm passionate about. And what I was passionate about back then and still am was motorcycling, really, and riding. And so I left my cozy Google job and salary, and I kind of dived into the powersports world and combined my talents or whatever thing I have in tech and powersports to kind of build online stuff for the powersports community and dealers and riders as well. Actually, it's interesting you asked earlier, Brian, about my story with the motorcycles. I started very late in my life. It's kind of different to most people. I've never ridden a motorcycle really until I was like almost 30 years old. My dad was a doctor, and his advice was to never ride a motorcycle because he was working at the hospital every night at the emergency room, and he's like, this is unbelievable. So, the thing that remained with me is like, wear a helmet if you ever do that. But so anyway, around 30 years old, I was looking for something to commute to work, basically, just in the city. And I ended up at the kind of scooter dealership and hopped on a genuine body scooter. And I tell you, the first 3 seconds I rode that thing, I knew I was done. And I zoomed out of there like a bat out of hell, as they say. And 6 months later, I bought a little Monster, it's a Ducati Monster. I rode that around, and I bought 5 or 6 bikes since then. And I just love riding them. Much less now, I have to say. I have 2 kids, and it's not as easy to get out there psychologically, but definitely, yeah, exactly. So anyway, that's how that passion evolved. So I kind of married my tech passion and my riding passion to build something online with motorcycles.
Do you remember, or do you feel like saying the name of a dealership that you went into and who you interacted with? I'm not going to ask you to tell me about them or whatever, give somebody a hard time, but...
Oh, yeah, it's San Francisco Scooter Center down on 10th Street. Barry is the owner, and then we go there and talk occasionally, and yeah, San Francisco Scooter Center was that. And then I think my first bike, like an actual, manual motorcycle, was bought from Monroe Motors. I was on Valencia City in San Francisco. So, and
sort of to start it off, what do you think that my dealership audience, what don't they know? What do they need to know? Can you give us a little bit of history just with your knowledge of Google? I'd love to tap into some of that.
Yeah, of course. I can. I think the most relevant thing here is to understand is that how search engines, Google is just an incarnation of Bing, Yahoo, wherever you go, DuckDuckGo, wherever people go, how all these online platforms see, your website, you being a dealership or any other website, and how they kind of rank it, right, and give it back to their users. And because that will help understand, why things are, happen in a certain way, why the dealership sites rank where they rank, and also what someone can do to improve that situation. And so the thing that is, right, the web, right, is that unbelievably huge place when Google or Yahoo, whoever goes out there to find web pages to send people to, and, they find trillions of them literally. And so they find all the dealership websites, they find all the marketplaces, Craigslist, Facebook, you name it, everything out there. They kind of crawl all of it, as we say, scrape all of it and then put it in their database. And then comes the even more difficult part, which is like someone goes on Google and says, all right, Yamaha Tenere for sale or something like that. Well, so now Google is faced with this task of ranking all these websites that it found, including your dealership website and also all the marketplaces. And well, in order to do that, it has to apply some rules, right? And I want to kind of highlight the most important things here, kind of coarsely. And this kind of the three most basic rules is how good is your website, right? How fast it is, how clean it is, do you have the right headings and stuff like that. These are kind of what we call inside or in-page characteristics. And then the second one, which is also crucial, is like how many people link to it. So that's important to understand because that's a very major signal for search engines to understand how good your dealer website is compared to everything else. Otherwise, it's as they say in the movie, it's just your opinion, right? It's like, yeah, that's a great website, but it's like when you write an academic paper, right, in university, it's like how many citations, how many references of other papers do you have? So when people talk about you, that's what tells the search engines you're popular, and so that tells them you're a good website. So that's a key thing to remember. And then the third one, I think, also very important, and that's the third one is quite a twister. It's like search engines depend on their users to tell them what are the good websites. And that sounds counterintuitive, right? Because you're like, well, that doesn't work this way, that's backwards. But that's actually not. When Google answers that first query you ask, that question, Sportster, Harley Sportster, or whatever, Yamaha Tenere, they're like, they gave you some links. Well, depending on what you click on and what people click on, then they will rearrange them to meet what the users want. So that's another key insight here, right? Because that means that the more successful you are, the more successful you will continue to be. You kind of build up on that. So those are those three things, right? The quality of your site, how many people talk about you and link to you, and also what do people select after they search. That's kind of the things that instruct search engines how to rank your website compared to everything else. So if you think how. So that's okay. That's great. Okay, so sure that happens. What does that mean though for like someone has a dealership and has a website and they want to basically attract users online or on Google or Facebook or wherever? Well, if you think about it, there's an issue here. Like if people are looking for things online to buy, and be that a motorcycle or a car or whatever, they usually tend to go to all these aggregators, right? The marketplaces. You usually go to Amazon to buy things or to eBay. And similarly, if you want to buy a car, you'll go to cars.com or Car Gurus. And if you want to buy a motorcycle, well, you're probably going to go to Craigslist or Facebook or Cycle Trader or all, the mega marketplaces, because that's what people want: breadth of inventory and availability, and they want a dedicated filtering and searching for what they're looking for, right? For motorcycles or for power sports, for ATVs, whatever that is. So they tend to gravitate there naturally anyway. And that's where the problem, I think, is with kind of an uphill battle with dealer websites, is that since that's where people go, that's where Google or Facebook will, or well, Facebook has its own marketplace, but that's where the search engines will send you to. That's like a major issue that you're facing, is that you're kind of facing an uphill battle, like that you kind of already at a disadvantage with, right? More people out there will link to or talk about Cycle Trader or Craigslist or Facebook than your individual dealership. So it's orders of magnitude different. And so that's a struggle that you have to face with, but it's not all lost. Like, it's not that you can't have visibility. Especially a caveat to all this is a local searches. So if people express online a desire to search locally, then the search engines understand that. So what they understand is that your intent is to go to a physical shop. Otherwise, you wouldn't be entering your town name, right? So it's a different thing to say Honda Trail 125, for sale. A different thing to try to search for Honda 125 Trail 125 ABS, whatever, for sale in Portland. Now that's, you're under Portland, you mean, you're in Portland. You want a shop in Portland, and that's where now the physical shops fight back against the Amazons and the Cars.com or the Auto Trader, whatever. Mm-hmm. So that's where you got an increasing chance, and we're going to tie back to that later on when I want to give some advice of how to exploit that. So that's the kind of the lay of the land, and if you wish. And similarly, we talk about search engines, but the same happens online with social networks like Facebook or Reddit or forums where people go to ask these questions. Like, I see all the time on Reddit, how do I buy a new motorcycle? And people will like, oh, go to Facebook or Craigslist or Cycle Trader, and they give the same answers again and again. So it's really rare, right? You see, you're like, oh, go down to Scuderia in San Francisco to buy a bike. You never really get that much. So all this signal, as we call it, comes into all these search engines and all these crawlers. So they know that. So unfortunately, naturally, they end up promoting those aggregators and above everything else.
So to a certain degree, it's not like you work in the industry, but you definitely have a product that is aimed at this audience. I'd be curious to know, how you feel like when you look, are the majority of dealers doing a bang up job on this? Are they doing great or not so much? Are they relying on, Craigslist or Cycle Trader listings to pull people over to them? Can you tell, or have you done enough searching?
Yeah. So, unfortunately, I'll disappoint you in the sense that I have seen all of the above. There are, yes, and to be honest, the right answer, it is to use to do all of the above, because no one knows. There's no certainty in this kind of profession or this world, the online world. Me or anybody else, if anybody tells you, oh, that's how it's done and that's how the solution is, like, don't. That's the first sign, red flag. Don't believe them. People can give you advice and they can give you information, but what specifically will work and what you should do, that's not like a certainty, right? But you should just try a lot of different things that are best practices, and then you will arrive at a result. Okay. If someone knew how to do it, then they would be billionaires, right? They would be like, they wouldn't tell anybody. They will, yeah. So I see a lot of dealers ranging from the complete, like, we don't go to any of these marketplaces, we don't touch them, we don't want to be there at all, and to all the way to people saying, yeah, we want to be in all of them, like in everywhere we can. And frankly, I have noticed that the correlation between who does that and who doesn't, it's a lot to do with size. Not always, but the bigger operations and maybe chains or bigger dealerships, they have, I think, figured that this is the game and you have to play it. So you might as well play it well instead of going to the corner. So I talk to some of our, partners and customers sometimes, and they're like, we go everywhere. Like, where can we list, basically? And that's a good strategy. I think that's number one, right? You don't want any particular outlet to have a monopoly. Sometimes dealers say, oh, I don't have a, we don't like Cycle Trader, or we don't want to be on Craigslist. We won't pay any of these fees to go on this site. We just be on Google. And what they don't understand is that you're on Google, that you're paying Google. That is, there is no escaping it, so to speak, right? People will not turn off on the phone and, when they want to buy it and go to your website, remembering it by heart. They can't do that. They have to find you some way. So you are in the game. That's the key kind of insight. So it's where you engage in this. It's not like whether you are advertising online or not.
I'd have, at least my argument was always, well, you got a lead, and the guy might say, oh yeah, I'm looking through the leads, but this guy was already a customer of mine. This guy was already a customer of mine. They might look through and see that the leads that they had attained. And I would say, but remember, obviously they're your customer and you might believe you have a great relationship with them, but they got back in touch with you again through the platform that I represent. In other words, what you pay me to do. So like you're saying,
Yes.
consumer activity and where they're going and how they're coming back in to be connected with and be interacted with
Yes.
is different every time. So like you're saying, to make sure you're in as many places as possible.
Of course. And also it goes the other way, which is a little bit sounds negative, but it is that if you are not there, then your customer that you already have might also find another outlet for what they're buying.
Mm-hmm.
I've been many times online to marketplaces, including our own, of course, and I have discovered dealerships that I didn't know existed and sold a particular vehicle that I would be interested in. And I wouldn't know about them because they're not in my town. They're like 5-10 miles away. I mean, the Bay Area is very densely populated. So within a 20-mile radius, there's like 50 dealerships. I don't know. So that's the opportunity cost there, is that they thought that they won't come to you anyway, but they might find someone else that also carries similar inventory or things that they want. And so it sounds a little bit like, oh, so then I have to be there in order to not send my customer somewhere else. And it goes back to the first principle I said, which is like, that is the game. Like the game online is that everything is visible. The whole world is your oyster. It's all in front of you. So you have to participate in that as a seller, as a retailer, rather than avoid it because of the two kind of major reasons we just explained. Yeah. You know, your dealer who said to you that's absolutely correct. That has been established. It's called the bias phenomenon. And eBay ran a survey a couple of years ago, and basically they proposed that their online advertising meant nothing. That was completely ineffective because people would have gone to eBay anyway. And at some point they cut hundreds of millions of advertising. They just stopped it. And they basically concluded there was no noticeable effect on the traffic. So the point there, though, is eBay is eBay. Like, that's exactly the point. When I started telling this story, I didn't have to explain to you who eBay was, right? But your dealership website is not eBay. So people would not necessarily know it by heart. So that bias phenomenon doesn't apply to those kinds of companies, to small retailers or like regional retailers. It applies to bigger companies that have tremendous brand awareness. And that wouldn't make an effect. But I thoroughly recommend, and if you have the guts and you want to try, yes, go stop it for a couple of months and then see your advertising and see what effect that has. And it's very difficult to judge, going back to what I was originally saying. Anybody who tells you they know the exact truth is lying to you, for sure. That's the only truth.
I was just going to say, I don't know if, and maybe this is where you're headed, what are the things, what are some actual, like the dealer could listen to this today and then go, and this is the list, a few things that they should actually do right away.
Yeah. So we talked about how to, seek places to distribute your inventory and, try to establish these relationships. That's for sure. But, as we said, also the quality of your website, right? So, matters. And most dealers I work with have vendors that build their websites. We all know them: Dealers like Inspire, REI, DX1, all these vendors. And so I think if I was a customer, I would be asking them to provide me with some sort of an SEO, as we say. SEO stands for Search Engine Optimization. So some sort of an SEO audit results of our own website. And these audits are kind of more impartial, right? So they cannot be doctored. So they will tell you how well you're doing in various aspects of the quality of your website. And then the additional thing that dealers can do today, and that's actually kind of fun, and you can do it immediately right now. Google has started giving a lot of emphasis on the performance of your website, especially on mobile phones. And they call this project, if you will, Web Vitals. And so if you Google online my Web Vitals score or my website performance score, you will end up in one of their tools where you can enter a link, a URL from your website, like your inventory page or a DDP, a listing page. And Google will tell you how fast your website is according to them, like how do they see it. It will actually give you a score and it will color it in there. And that's like a way to get an idea immediately. And then you can take that score. And then if it's too low, if it's below the 60, 70s, actually below 70, then you should probably escalate that and say, ask your provider what's up. And
okay.
One of the things that affect. Yeah.
No, I was just gonna say, did you say Web Vital, like your vitals, like checking your pulse, that sort of thing?
And exactly. They call that a whole thing Web Vitals. Yeah.
Okay, so if they go to Google and Google Web Vital, they'll see what it is and they could test their.
Let me see how you would. It's Google's own site. Yeah, if you say Web Vital score or whatever, you get a lot of ads from people trying to improve that. But maybe Ryan, we can put some sort of a link. I can find a link and we can put it on the description of the.
And I wondered if you know and would share if you feel like it's, when I was working in with dealers directly like that a lot, it was a lot of conversations. They would say like, well, how can I do this? How can I do that? And I would say, you need to be creating your own content, right? Don't rely on us, but create your own content. But that same content could be used through your website that would come to me as a marketplace provider, in the feed. And I would say you need to focus on things like don't just use the canned verbiage that comes from your website provider, but your own, additional information in there, and use your own actual photos. And I don't know if that's something that you want to speak to, if a dealership using their own photos, other than the visual draw into unique content in that way, is there something in the world of sort of the Googles and those sort of things that would benefit them and it's worth their while?
Yes, absolutely. So that's an excellent question. I haven't even gone into the thing about that. So both for the customer and Google, it's better to use your own content, including photos and description of the vehicle.
Okay.
Why? Obviously, I think I don't need to tell dealers how people buy motorcycles. They've been in this forever. It's almost the number one ask, right, from a user or a customer is, do you have more photos? So people will connect with the vehicle, what they're buying, through these photographs. They will go, uncover it, look at all the 40 of them, the dashboard, that and this. It really adds a lot. And if it's a particular one, even if it's a new one, the particular one in that shop, in that context, it will make a difference. How much, I can't tell you. Now, the same with the description, right? Especially if it's a new bike, then, what can you do, right? You're probably going to use some stock description. But if it's a used one, just adding one or two sentences about it that's particular to that vehicle will make a difference, because the users will just connect with that. They will feel it a much more well-rounded DDP, a rounded ad that they're more inclined to communicate further and contact you. Now, that's for the user. For Google and search engines, yes, absolutely. I mean, for more than a decade now, and when I was working there, and that we could, Google knows when something is so. There are so many websites out there that all they do, they go scrape Wikipedia, for example, make another website, and it's another Wikipedia, right? Well, where do you ever see them? You only see Wikipedia when you look for whatever, right? Well, because Google knows where it came from, knows the copy. So when all 300 Honda or Yamaha dealerships have the same description that is in the Yamaha website for the Tenere or whatever, Google knows this is the same description. They've seen that text elsewhere. They've seen it 300 times and they know that it's stock. So that content does not increase the chances of you ranking higher compared to someone else. You're basically even. Now, recently, and of course, obviously, later development, they do that I think they can do that for photos too. So stock photography also is recognized by them as being something that is not original, it's not authentic content. And so it is downgraded in terms of utility. They wouldn't penalize anybody for it. Actually, I did hear that exact question. Google has its own webmasters sessions. And I go there all the time. It's very fun to hear, if you're geek, to listen to. And I think that question about repeating stock, descriptions or whatever, penalizes websites. And they said it doesn't penalize them, but it doesn't help them either. So yes, authentic content is beneficial both for ranking well in Google and for establishing rapport with your users.
Well, you've certainly shared a lot of little bullet points, if you will, to me. But I know that each and every one of those are something that's an actionable piece for the dealer network that listens to this. So I appreciate you doing that. I do want to, and I know that you don't want to make this about you and your company, but I would love for you to share a little bit about MotoHunt and, who's MotoHunt, right? There's going to be dealers who listen to this who may not know who it is, and now they do. But if you could share a little bit about MotoHunt and what you're doing over there, just so everybody knows who you are and if they're looking for a solution like that.
Yeah, of course. So as I said earlier, when I left Google, I wanted to do kind of a passion project, and that's what MotoHunt was. And I really always liked marketplaces and creating websites where people can find things. So I thought that's up my alley, and I created MotoHunt, which is a free to participate marketplace for power sports. And again, having my background, my idea was I will just do exactly what the search engines do. I will crawl the web, find listings, and then refer all my users back to those retailers. And that's what MotoHunt is. So from our perspective, our goal is to, basically build something really, really nice for the motorcycling community, where they can go and safely find things and have all of the inventory there. So availability and inventory is our primary goals, not profit is not the main kind of optimizer. And in order for us to do that, we also kind of give all of this traffic back to the sellers, to dealers in this case. Also leads and everything that comes to us is free for them. And so we create basically a Google just for motorcycles. And our thinking is that, if you're going to play in this world and you're a retailer, like a dealer, you might as well partner with someone that's on your side. And if you make that a success, then everybody wins. So we consider dealers to be verified sellers. They are. It's actually funny, right? I mean, in Craigslist, remember, it was free for all. And then at some point, Craigslist added a fee, right, even to users. And why did they do that? Well, they added the fee for users to prevent scams, to protect users, right, from people who just posted there. But what does that tell you? That tells you that private individuals who go to sell things online, yes, unfortunately, they have to be verified, but the dealers don't have to. That's the point. They are verified sellers. We know where your store is. You're not going to pack up and go after you sell me this bike. So what I think it was the opposite. Like, the dealers don't have to pay because, that's where they are. And then as far as the community itself, the riders, we wanted to build something that helps beginner, especially riders, find the vehicle that's appropriate for them. So it was less about, I've been reading for 20 years and I know what I want and where is that available, but it's more about, I'm a beginner, I like cruisers, what should I buy? So we kind of build a lot of functionality around that. And so that's what our aim for the site is, to become a place where there's increased availability, there's a marketplace that's friendly to buyers and the sellers, lowers the cost barrier to entry, and evens out the playing field, with all the big mega marketplaces out there. And of course, we also build great tech. We come from a tech industry, and we have also premium stuff like pricing technology that the automobile industry, the automobile retailers have had for a decade. So we're bringing that to the powersports world as well, and that's premium services. So this is the site, and we have a lot of information there for how you can use it and benefit from it. And I hope we see you, we hear from you.
Thanks again for listening to this lost tape of the Dealership Fix It podcast. These guest interviews still hit hard, and we're bringing them back re-edited, sharpened up, and focused entirely on what matters, helping dealerships like yours improve, grow, and win. If you got something out of this one, hit that share button or forward it to a dealership friend who needs it. And make sure you're following the show so we can keep bringing you more content like this with convos with people shaping the power sports industry. Catch you on
Still guessing what to pay on a used bike? Still holding aged units that just won't move? It's time for a real system. MotoHunt's ultimate used inventory playbook shows how the best dealers are finding better inventory, pricing trades right, and turning used bikes faster with fewer mistakes and more margin. It's short, real, and free to download right now. Visit dealers.motohunt.com to grab your copy or check for the link in the notes.